Okay. Morning class. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning po.
Good
Morning.
morning po.
Okay. So, good morning po sa ating lahat. So, it is another Saturday. So, it is another Saturday for our environmental crop physiology class. So, for the past weeks, we've been talking about different relations ng ating crops to different variables. And yung last meeting natin, we talk about water. So, this time, sa ano naman po tayo? Sa temperature. So before we proceed with your presentation, so we have how many presenters for today? So we have Ma'am Teresita, Ma'am Tess, Ma'am Maribel, Sir Joel. Then we have also Sir John Eric after my presentation on the temperature relations. Okay, so we have remaining three topics to discuss for this semester. So ngayon, we'll be talking about temperature relations. Then next week, alelo, chemical relations. Then lastly, will be on the stress physiology. Okay, so meron na lang po tayong last 3 weeks. But the semester, if I'm not mistaken, will last until December 23. That is the last day of the semester for the undergraduate. I'm not just sure for the graduate school. Okay? So without further ado, ready na po ba tayo? Ready na po? Okay, so let's start our discussion for the temperature relations. So, pull out ko lang aking screen. Okay. So these are the topics that we'll be talking about. So the microclimatic variation temperatures, the plant temperature relations in general, the ground color, the vegetation, the slope aspects, the temperature regulation, and adaptation to harsh environments. Okay, so let's start with the microclimatic variations and temperatures. So we know that the plants, they occupy a certain space on Earth. So particularly ating layer natin na tinatawag na biosphere. So, but the plants itself, it's just only composed of a very thin green layer. However, this is very much critical doon sa life natin dito sa biosphere. Now, the space the plants occupy is very reactive due to intensive interactions between the physical environment of the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere and the living organisms. So basically, the space in which the plants or the crops grow, it interacts with different variables as we have discussed from the previous topics. Now, yung ating uh, yung ating the basic physical functioning of of a certain of the biosphere is very reliant doon sa ating light. Now, the light starts, of course, it starts with the photosynthesis pagdating dito sa lupa. But of course, our light coming from the solar energy, coming from the sun, pumapasok sa atin, pumapasok sa Earth, it diffused, it's scattered into different particles. Now, the light is absorbed by the atmosphere. And this atmosphere, yung ating atmosphere, merong intense radiation at the higher altitudes with a relatively greater amount of short wavelength high radiation. So in this case, dito nabubuo yung tinatawag natin na temperature. because of the interaction of the light and the atmosphere. Now, among this, meron tayong nabubuong mga tinatawag na microenvironments and in these microenvironments, meron yan tinatawag na microclimate. So halimbawa, when you go to a forest, basically, particularly a rainforest, it has a different temperature as you go to a different place sharing at the same region. Kumbaga, halimbawa, pupunta tayo dito sa Pampanga. If you'll go to the Mount Arayat, even though this is Pampanga, if you will go to Mount Arayat, iba yung temperatura doon sa loob ng forest sa forest ng Mount Arayat as compared to the plains. So it's because there are different interactions going on doon sa physical environment na meron doon sa lugar. And this creates a microenvironment that has its own microclimate. So pag sinabi nating microclimate, this is a unique feature of our environment in contrary doon sa macroclimate na present doon sa region na yon. So this is very much important, of course, when we talk about yung mga when we talk about how different plants respond to certain situation, just like yung ating temperature. Now, importante yung temperature, importante yung altitude when we talk about temperature. So habang tumataas yung ating altitude, tumataas yung pressure, bumababa ang temperature. So that is the very common characteristics or how these three variables responds. So basically, altitude, doon nagkakaroon ng based on the altitude, there are different plants or crops that can thrive. So kaya when we talk about in agriculture, meron tayong upland agriculture, meron din tayong lowland agriculture. So basically, altitude it's one of the dominant factors that needs to be considered kung anong crops or anong halaman yung pwedeng itanim natin doon sa particular altitude na yun. So it's very dependent on that aspect. Especially, malaki yung influensya aside from the nutrients that we talk about, aside from the water that we talk about. Malaking influensya yung temperature pagdating doon sa how the soil will provide nutrients and water doon sa ating mga halaman. So, ganoon ka-importante itong mga factors na to. Now, we've been talking about climate, we'll be talking about weather. So, when we speak of climate, ito yung ating long-term weather pattern. When we speak of weather, this is our short-term climate pattern. So, these are the two aspects that states the heat distribution or the heat distribution pattern dito sa ating mundo. So these atmospheric variables are significantly weather conditions as well as climate system in a region. So itong dalawa, the climate and the weather, it tells us what is the climate system of a particular region. In the Philippines, we have different climate types. You have 4 climate types. So those residing in the south, they have different climate type. Those residing in the facing the Pacific, facing the West Philippine Sea, magkaiba yung climate type usually. So this is attributed based on the pattern, based on the climate and weather patterns na nabuo doon sa area na yon. So in Pampanga, basically in the western portion of the country, in Luzon, nasa type 1 climate, type 1 tayo. So we have a very pronounced rainy season and we have a very pronounced dry season. So kumbaga clear siya. If you will compare it with those residing in Bicol, na they have more pronounced rainy season as compared to the dry season. So it probably this is considered based on, of course, yung pagpasok ng bagyo sa Pilipinas. Now, other factors that that is very much important, or other variables that actually influence the thermodynamics. We have the solar radiation, the humidity, and winds. So humidity, we've talked about this last meeting. Na when the certain area is very humid, sometimes you feel the heat more. So mas mainit kapag mas mataas ang humidity. But if of course it's very dependent on the topography of the area. As I exampled last time, ang example ko ay yung sa Laguna, wherein it has a different heat. Now, it has a different temperature as we compared with the temperature here in Pampanga. Dito sa Pampanga, yung temperature natin, it's very, very dry as compared doon sa Laguna. It has very, very humid. So, malagkit yung init. Now, this is the electromagnetic spectrum. So as discussed in our slides, yung yung light na pumapasok sa atin, it has a different amount of energy based on its length. Now, yung ating mga shorter wavelength, they have higher frequency and higher energy as compared to those longer wavelength, longer frequency, and they have lower energy. Now, examples of those short wavelength, higher frequency, and higher energy, we have the gamma ray, the X-ray. In the middle, we have the ultraviolet ray. Dun sa dulo, another example of those longer wavelength, lower frequency, and lower energy, the microwave, infrared, and radio. Now, the amount of energy radiation depends on the wavelength of the radiation. So the shorter the wavelength, the more the amount of energy in radiation and vice versa. So hot bodies emit radiation of shorter wavelengths and cool bodies of longer wavelength. Now, if you'll explain it doon sa ating sa posisyon ng Pilipinas, as you are located in the equator and the earth is tilted, ang nangyayari, the shorter wavelengths, so tumatama siya doon sa equator. So uh, that's why in the tropical region, we only have a very pronounced hot and dry and rainy season. So yun yung the primary reason. So the shorter wavelength, it has more energy and it releases more higher temperature. Now this video is a very short video explaining this electromagnetic spectrum. So let's together watch this video.
Excuse po, Doc.
Yes, sorry.
Sa akin lang po ba walang sound po?
Ay, bakit? Ay, sorry. Hindi ko ata na-share yung sound.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Let's rewind. Thank you.
What do all these activities have in common? Each of them use waves from the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is composed of EM waves. These are waves that are created as a result of vibrations between an electric field and a magnetic field. In other words, EM waves are composed of oscillating magnetic and electric fields. This is why they are called electromagnetic waves. The electric field and the magnetic field of an electromagnetic wave are perpendicular or right angles to each other, and they're also perpendicular to the direction or propagation of the wave. The electromagnetic spectrum is ordered by frequency, which is the number of wavelengths that pass a fixed point per second. Frequency is measured in hertz, and the spectrum has a very wide range from 300 kilohertz to an incredibly small 3 times 10 to the 21st power hertz. An electromagnetic wave can travel through anything like air, solid material, or even vacuum. It does not need a medium to propagate or travel from one place to another. Electromagnetic waves can even travel through the vacuum of outer space. Let's take a look at the electromagnetic spectrum. Radio waves have a very low frequency, and they have a wavelength roughly the size of a soccer field. Moving to the right are microwaves, and they have wavelengths roughly the size of a baseball. In the middle is visible light, with a wavelength the size of bacteria. Visible light can be subdivided by color, with red having the lowest frequency and blue having the highest frequency. Now, at this point, the wavelengths are very, very small. X-rays are slightly larger than a water molecule, and radioactive sources, such as gamma rays, are the size of atoms. The electromagnetic spectrum is used in everyday life, from listening to music, to visible light, to microwave ovens, to even looking inside our bodies. If you'd like to know more about the electromagnetic spectrum, this playlist will help. And as always, thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day. Please subscribe and share.
Okay, so that's a very short video about electromagnetic spectrum. So how do different rays vary in their wavelength and how it was being used in different purposes. So this table, commonly we know all of this. We have the gamma rays, the X-rays, the ultraviolet light, the visible light, the infrared. So usually infrared are present sa ating mga remote controls, sa ating mga phones. They used to have our phones, microwave sa ating mga microwave oven, and radio waves. They use those used in the radio stations. But we are talking about this because this radiation they have a great influence doon sa ating temperature. Now let's now talk about the plant temperature relations. So in different doon sa ating mga plants. So yung mga plants natin, they cannot maintain their physiological process at a constant optimum temperature as if you'll compare it with those homeothermic animals. So changes in environmental temperatures, which do occur invariably, affect the physiology and growth of the plants. However, there is no linear relationship that we can establish between plant processes and environmental temperatures. It is because there is enormous variation in air and soil temperatures. So doon tayo nahihirapan. Now, regular seasonal and diurnal temperature variations, irregular and short-term cloudiness and winds, leaf dimensions, leaf position in canopy, plants' heights, above and depths below the soil surface are the dominant terrestrial factors the temperature of the plants depends upon. So, dito yung ating mga, these are the things that we look into. Now, plants also varies. They have also varies in terms of the optimum temperature that they require for development stages. So, for example, for geophytes, so these are not present. Dito masyadong available sa atin sa Philippines because in the temperate region ito. In most geophytes, for example, temperature optima for flower meristem induction in early stages of floral organogenesis range from 9 degrees to 25 degrees Celsius followed by considerably lower temperatures for several weeks that vary between 4 degrees Celsius and 9 degrees Celsius in the autumn season. So which is a necessity for stem elongation and anthesis. In order to complete their annual cycle, thus, most of the steophytes require a warm, cold, warm sequence of temperatures. So depending on what type of plant that you have, it requires different temperature based on the stages in which the plants are undergoing. Now, temperature has also been shown to be important pagdating sa ating seed germination. Seed germination is influenced by the temperature on the basis of three prevailing conditions. You have the moisture, the moisture content, enzyme activity, and hormone production. So generally, the temperature, it causes, kapag mataas ang temperature, mas natutuyo ang lupa. At kapag mas natutuyo ang lupa, nababawasan ang soil moisture content in which kung saan yung ating mga seeds, they are very dependent on water. So because through water, doon nagkakaroon ng pass-through of nutrients coming from the soil. So as we have discussed, so importante yung temperature in this case. So we have the temperature, it causes changes doon sa soil moisture content in which yung water kailangan ng seeds para mag-grow siya. Okay? So the temperature now in this example, it increases the evaporation rate ng ating soil. Now, we have different plant growth hormones. So we have the abscisic acid, we have gibberellin. So ito yung dalawa. Abscisic acid is more on, ito yung dalawang hormones, plant growth hormones. These are plant hormones that regulate the growth and development of the plants. We have the abscisic acid and gibberellins. Now, yung ating abscisic acid is more focused on the dormancy of the seeds, while yung ating gibberellins is more on the para mag-upshoot yung ating mga seeds. Now, the characteristic response of plant growth to temperature is owing to the fact that a rise in temperature affects biochemical processes in two ways that are mutually antagonistic. One, with an increase in plant cell temperature, the velocity of the movement in all three dimensions of the reacting molecules, rotational, vibrational, and translational, increases, resulting in increased frequency of intermolecular collisions and more rapid reaction rates, and this influence is common to most of the chemical reactions occurring in the plants. Another, with a rise in temperature, enhanced molecular agitation tends to damage the three-dimensional shapes of the enzyme proteins, resulting in reduced enzyme activity and reaction rates. So these are just the two examples why higher temperature is not that much favorable sa ating mga halaman. Sometimes ang nangyari is nalalanta sila. Now, let's talk about the ground color and temperatures. Yung ating ground color, without the vegetation, kung wala yung vegetation, yung kulay ng lupa yung mag-appear. Now, of course, pinag-uusapan natin dito, probably you're familiar with this, yung ating albedo. So, darker the grounds, it reflects comparatively less light. So, and absorb comparatively more light with comparatively greater rise in temperatures. So, yung ating mga darker grounds, they absorb more light, and yung more light na to ay nagiging cause ng higher temperature. So this is an example when you wear black t-shirt as compared to white t-shirt. So you feel an increase in temperature kapag mas nagsusuot ka ng darker colors. So this also affects our grounds. So meron din tayong ganitong klaseng situation. So this is what we call the albedo. So the higher the albedo, the higher the the light that can be absorbed. That's why when we talk about buildings, they really do not recommend yung paglalagay ng paint that has a darker color because it's more of it causes more heat doon sa building na yun. So same is true with the ground, with our with the ground that those that has a lighter color ground will heat up less as compared doon sa dark colored ground. So we can have an example pagdating sa mga beaches also. Now for the vegetation. For the vegetation, of course, kapag mas shady yung lugar, kapag mas mataas yung dito, when let's say for in the forest, naging malamig siya. As example, dun sa first example ko kanina, mas malamig siya as compared dun sa plain because the trees, they provide shade and it create a different climate doon sa below nito. Now, itong microclimate na to, it also provides another climate na pwedeng tumubo yung mga ibang species doon sa lugar na yun. So halimbawa, let's say for the cacao plant, they have to be planted first doon sa shaded area. That's why usually they in between merong mga banana, minsan coconut yung itinatanim. So ito yung importansya sometimes ng microclimate pagdating sa mga ibang species. So that's just one of the examples. Now, again, yung ating this slope aspects, these not solar aspects. Now, for the slope aspects and temperatures, kapag mas sloping area, of course, it changes the altitudes. Now, yung pagdating natin sa higher altitude, mas malamig yung temperature as compared dun sa lower altitude. But at the same time, yung mga mas exposed na space, of course, mas mataas yung temperature, just like the plains, as compared to those sleepy, those hilly, or doon sa mga valley areas. Now, for solar energy and temperature interaction, in food crop plants in cultivated areas, dry matter yield, which is the integral of net carbon dioxide assimilation over the total crop growing season, is of a key importance. So the environmental factors that often, rather inevitably change during a growing season include temperatures of air and soil, which influence crop yields, plant biomass. So these variables might be used to derive advantages in increasing the dry matter yield of the crops. So we have to monitor yung ating air and soil temperature when we are talking about crop yield and plant biomass. So that's why in other places, I think this is one of the example ni Sir Joel last time. We have this kind of sensors already in checking the water, in checking the soil temperature. And this also one thing that the Sarai project wanted to share or wanted to work on, the use of the climatic factors, considering all the climatic factors in the plant development stages ng isang halaman, because primarily the climate has a very strong influence on the growth of the different plants. Now, yung ating mga plants, of course, they do not have, they have means of regulating the temperature, but it's not as good as the animals do pagdating sa temperature regulation. So, ang ginagawa ng ating mga halaman, they have different responses actually. So, example, yung ating mga sunflower. So these are phototrophic organisms wherein they face kung nasaan yung light, kung nasaan yung light. Now, ang ginagawa ng mga halaman pagdating dito is they depend on external sources of energy for thermal regulation. So example, the environments that pose challenges to plant species, that is relatively harsher environments at yung mga tundra and experts, are more appropriate for the studies relating to thermal regulation of the plants. So in order to exchange heat energy with these kind of environments, plants often use their morphological behaviors. One of the well-known examples of is the orientation of the sunflower toward the sun. While in animals, many of the modes can be observed, pero sa mga plants, hindi siya ganun conspicuous. So, hindi siya ganun ka-visible. But, yun nga, they rely on other sources, let's say the presence of water, the presence of wind, for them to regulate the temperature physiologically. Now, in extreme cold environments, the plants modify their morphological and anatomical structures and alter their physiological traits. So as to, one is to gain maximum possible heat from their surroundings. Second, to lose minimum heat into the environment. So sometimes there are plants that have thicker thicker cover para ma-preserve yung water sa loob nila at hindi sila malanta. So, evident ito sa mga cactus present in the desert. So, third, maximize the photosynthetic efficiency within a limited period of exposure to solar radiation. This is especially for those areas na mas matagal ang night period, yung darker period as compared dun sa maaraw nila. So in some places in the world, meron tayong mga ganun cases. Then fourth, efficiently utilize mineral resources from their ecosystems. Then fifth, optimum of growth within their habitats. Now, I would like to hear from everyone, based on these concepts, paano nga ba talaga nakakatulong yung temperature pagdating doon sa crop production? How temperature influence yung crop production? So you can cite based on your experience pagdating sa field, or based on the researches that you've been through, or based on the conversations you had with the farmers sa yung mga different field activities and all. So who'd like to start?
Sir,
Sir, repeat question po.
Okay, so basically my question is how temperature influence the crop production. So you can cite examples based on your experience pagdating sa field or pagdating sa mga researches that you've been to. Okay, so Sir Joel, you would like to start?
thank you po, Sir Gerald. Good morning po, and good morning to all classmates po. I would like to react based on what we saw, the projects that we have seen, we have supported. Well, number one po, I think this topic, this concept is very important, especially in the field of studying climate change, no? Kasi I've heard from experts, and this is not the first time I've heard about microclimate. Kasi sabi nga nila, mas importante kung saan talaga nagtatribe yung crops mo eh. And there is a certain height only where the concern of microclimate would significantly affect the performance of crops. Anything above that is quite insignificant. So, ang kailangan i-manage yung talagang microclimate kung saan siya talaga mag-perform. And dun po sa mga projects po na nasuportahan namin sa DA, particularly sa BAR, specifically sa farming systems, very important po ito doon sa how do you really bring together different combination of crops. No, you cannot just put in, for example, ang dominant crop mo coconut, tapos maglalagay ka ng mga sun-loving na vegetables sa ilalim. So it's not effective, no? Kasi syempre, number one, yung canopy pa lang. For example, kung puro mangga, what are the suitable crops that can be intercrop? You cannot just put everything there. Kasi number one, yung canopy pa lang ng mangga, wala na kaagad araw na papasok. So, you cannot expect all crops, sort of crops, to be thriving in those conditions. And one basic concept also that ito medyo undergrad pa, yung mga multi-story. Kaya yun po yung idea ng multi-story cropping eh. So you put in certain crops wherein they will not be impeding the other crops that would be planted also in the same area. So proper po. And then I also again, I would like to share again that the importance of light and temperature, especially in the advent of indoor farming. Napakaganda po itong naging innovation kasi ang pinag-aralan talaga dito yung mga spectrum ng light, no? Which one would matter most in the growth of plants? So naaral nila, so they were able to isolate it and put it in the LED light technology so that plants can thrive indoors. So that it will complement yung conventional farming, which we know sa bansa natin, ang lupa natin hindi lumalaki, lumiliit pa nga. So nako-convert pa nga yung ibang lupa. So yun po yung future, no? Parang sabi nga nila, it's Agri 4.0, no? It's not, the future of farming is not anymore horizontal, but it's actually going vertical. So that's one thing that I've also encountered. Yung sa temperature, one classic case talaga ng ng significance lalo na sa climate change. For example, in the highlands sa Benguet, ito madalas napapabalita, no? Pag sobrang lamig po, 'di ba, nagfo-frost, no? Yung mga, for example, yung mga strawberry, ayan. So namamatay talaga kasi nagfi-freeze yung niya eh, like yung vascular system niya mag-freeze lahat yan. So it impedes already that the capacity of the plant to produce, no, to transport its the necessary nutrients and to and from its different parts. So it's a classic example. Wala na yata. Anyway, yung yung isa ko pa sir na gustong i-share, meron kasing naituro sa amin, although sa parang medyo parang hindi medyo uwido part type na Sabi nga nila pag hinawakan mo daw yung lupa at medyo mainit, sabi nila medyo active yung yung microbial activity. So ibig sabihin kung may vermiculture ka, malalaman mo active yung worms, no? And yung mga ibang microorganism, pag hinawakan mo daw yung cast ay mainit. So, ibig sabihin, effective yung composting mo. Rather than kung yung kino-compost mo, pag hinawakan mo malamig, so wala na yon, patay lupa. So maybe I'm just trying to relate some bits and pieces of what I've seen and observed. And I think another useful application, specifically on this yung mga wavelength na yan eh. Yung, for example, yung sa particle acceleration, no? I've seen one advanced facility, saan ba to? Parang Canada eh, yung synchrotron, I think it's a particle accelerator machine. Well, its uses is mostly for medical purposes. Probably for animals also and other diagnostic thing, no? Maganda po siya kasi we can already diagnose without being invasive. No? Nakikita mo siya, nadadissect mo yung hayop, yung halaman. Kaya lang, very sensitive equipment. Ang mahal-mahal pala nito. Wala ang Pilipinas to. Mahirap ang Pilipinas eh. So hindi natin kayang bilhin yun. $140 million ba na yun? Investment, no? I think, okay. Yun na lang po. Last na lang po siguro, yung this I think would be very important in determining certain suitabilities, no? Yung mga yung dapat itanim mo dito, ano dapat itanim mo doon. So hindi, I'm just generalizing things kasi kanina po nagja-jot down ako ng mga kwan. So yun po. I hope I was able to share something insightful and thank you very much po.
Yeah, thank you, Sir Joel. I almost forgot to tell, yun nga, the importance of temperature, it's on talking about this, especially at present times, yung about regarding sa climate change, because this is how we're going to deal with the increasing temperature. At palala ng palala yung I think I saw it from a global outlook. na sobrang red na ng mundo. Ibig sabihin, sobrang taas na ng temperature. And of course, for the Philippines, we're somehow, yung ating mga plants are adapted to this kind of environment already Kasi we have this kind of tropical climate ever since. Ang kawawa natin dito ay yung mga plants, those on the temperate regions, na they do not really have that kind of, probably they have the technology, they have the greenhouse, but of course the plants are not adaptive to that kind of temperature. So kailangan muna natin ng evolution in that aspect, or morphological or genetic engineering on that aspect. So yun yung gusto ko rin sabihin kanina, which I forgot, that temperatures, talking about climate change, not just only about the disaster, but also this kind of increase in temperature kung saan maapektuhan yung ating crops. Actually, there are a lot of reports already. If you read different, I'm reading the Circa article. So particularly in Southeast Asia, sa sobrang taas na rin ng temperature is bumababa lalo yung yield, yung crop yield, because it affects the shoot. Now, I'd like to also to point out yung nabanggit ni Sir Joel kanina regarding doon sa mga vermicomposting, vermicast, that they are sobrang mainit sila. It's because heat actually, it's very when there is an optimum heat, maganda yung enzyme activity natin doon sa area, and it provides nutrients doon sa, it breakdowns the nutrients needed for the plants. So thank you, Sir Joel. So I think si Ma'am, sino yung sa kami? Ayan. So Ma'am Tess. Ma'am Tess, thank you. Please share your ideas and experience.
Ayan, sir. So, ano po ako na pinaulit ko po yung tanong kanina kung tama ba yung pagkaintindi ko sa tanong na how does temperature affects the plants, lalo na yung sa case po namin sa farmers. Tapos naalala ko po nung Sabado ba yun? Last Saturday, nag-discuss po si Sir Rafael Pantoja about sa lettuce production. Tapos yung demand nga po dahil mahilig tayong mag-samji, ganyan. And naalala ko po, sabi doon na tumataas yung temperature, nagka-cause siya ng bitter taste sa lettuce. Tama ba yun, Sir Rafael? Kung tama yung pagkaalala ko?
Yes, ma'am, tama.
Dahil physiologically, yung lettuce, nagre-respond siya. Yung bolting, tama po ba, Sir Rafael? Kung tama yung
Yes, ma'am.
pagkakatanda ko.
Tama po.
And moreover po, sinabi ni Madam Emily, ni Doc Emily, na dahil yon sa saponin. So may ganun po palang pangyayari sa mga halaman, nagre-respond sila physiologically na nagpo-produce ng mga ganong chemical. So iniisip ko po, sa lettuce lang po kaya ganun yun, sir? Yung lettuce lang po kayang pumapait? Paano po kaya yung mga ibang leafy vegetable? Baka po kasi dahil tumataas ang temperature, magkaroon din po ng ibang lasa yung iba pang leafy vegetable aside from lettuce. Yun po. Yun po, sir.
Okay. To answer your question, Ma'am, I'm not really familiar with how specific plants respond to the temperature. But one thing is for sure, it will be talking about in a biological perspective. Yung kapag nag-increase yung mga different phytochemical components, just like saponins, pumapait talaga siya kasi itong saponin, ano ma'am, parang it changes yung taste niya. So I think meron natin gustong i-add si Ma'am Bell. Ma'am Bell?
Hello po, good morning po sa lahat. So, ayun po, i-add ko lang po yung sinabi po ni Ma'am Tere about doon sa effect ng temperature doon sa lasa ng ating lettuce. So, nagkaroon po kasi kami dati ng project, funded po siya with the DOST, the indoor farming, dahil nga po ay ang Aurora ay laging dinadaan ng bagyo. So, nagkaroon po ng project na indoor farming. So, ang ginamit po namin doon is yung lettuce. And in-incorporate po namin yung LED light na sinabi po kanina ni Sir Joel. And then yung fiber optic technology para mapailaw po yung mga van na ginamit po namin. So, ayon po doon sa napag-aralan po namin doon na malaki po yung epekto ng temperature sa lasa po nung lettuce, and at the same time po yung lighting na ginamit po namin is medyo napababa po niya yung pait, no? Or naiba yung taste nung lettuce. So sa paggamit po ng mga ng LED light and pag-control po ng water temperature, kasi mahalaga po yun yung water temperature dun sa ugat po ng ating lettuce, mas kumapal po, no? Mas observe po namin na mas kumapal yung roots ng ating lettuce, and mas na-improve po yung taste niya. Yun po, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma'am Bell. So, thank you. So, that's a very good experience na na-share ni Ma'am Bell related doon sa na tanong at naalala ni Ma'am Tess regarding doon sa change in the taste. Kasi yung saponin, basically mapait talaga yung lasa niyan. So kapag mataas ang level of saponin ng isang organism, ng isang species actually, plant species, mapapait sila. So if I am to generalize, it may happen also to other species, green leafy vegetables in particular. Let's say yung mga lettuce, mustasa, and all. So probably they will have this kind of experience also. But of course, it's still dependent on, sabi nga kanina dun sa naging research na Ma'am Bell, it is dependent also on the light, on the presence of light doon sa halaman. Okay, thank you, Ma'am Bell and Ma'am Tess, and also Sir Rafael, on sharing all of these things, and Sir Joel, sa mga points that also shared, and some topics that were further explained. Si ano naman, sina Ma'am wants to go next, Ma'am Tricia.
Yes po, sir. Sa amin naman po, yung ginagawa po namin, we are, especially sa mga rain-fed areas po namin, nagkakandak po kami ng demo, just like next gen, yung mga next gen varieties that are adaptable sa mga rain-fed areas po natin. At the same time po, meron naman pong practices yung ating mga upland, yung ating mga indigenous people, yung pong mga fruit bearing nila dun sa ilalim ng fruit bearing, nagtatanim po sila ng mga shade loving plants para ma-maximize po nila yung area po nila.
Okay, so these are just some of the practices, local practices na ginagawa ng ating mga indigenous people. So thank you, Ma'am Tricia. So ay may comment din pala, may chat pala kanina si Ma'am Bell, yung developing heat-resistant varieties. So this is what we do right now. So yung mga, let's say, Erie, they've been doing varieties like this. Or nandun na tayo sa point na we are trying to re-engineer yung ating mga plant species. This is a very much different topic from what we are talking right now, what we are discussing right now. But we cannot get away with this, yung parang re-engineering of the different plants, different species to produce those yung para gumanda yung production, mas adaptive doon sa environment. So these are the realities that we have. Now, the cons of having such, of course, if we'll be talking about yung mga religious people or those other groups, pro-environment groups, they are somehow resistant to this kind of DNA recombinant technology or genetic engineering, because sasabihin nila, it is as if you're acting like God. In other aspects naman, sasabihin nila is they are, these species, or these varieties, they might replace the local varieties na meron tayo. So of course, yung mga conservationists at saka yung ating mga nagpo-preserve, those who want to conserve and manage our environment, we want to retain all as well yung ating mga local species. On top of those na gusto nating itanim. However, there are some cases that these genetically engineered species, I'm not against with the GMOs. It is just that they might replace the local species that we have. At the same time, they might be invasive in a way. So, kumbaga, before we produce, basically before naman i-produce yan on the ground, there are a lot of studies that have been done. However, we have to make a balance of such all of this. So, kung saan yung mahirap siyang I mean, it is a debatable issue itong genetic engineering ever since. It is a debatable issue because it may be pro-economic. However, on the other side of the lens, it may be detrimental on the conservation of the indigenous or local species in a certain area. But again, we want to survive, of course. That's why we are developing this kind. Scientists, researchers have been exerting effort in researching all of this, investing a lot of money para mapag-aralan on how to create or to re-engineer the species para maging adaptive sila doon sa changing environment. Ayan. Thank you, Ma'am Tricia. And for this point, Ma'am Bell. So si Sir Rafael.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, good morning po. Sir, sa akin siguro, sir, how does temperature affect plants? Yung affect the length of growing season and accelerate crop maturity po. Mas napapabilis po yung pagtanda nila kapag mainit po ang panahon. Then, yung warm temperature naman po, induce yung vegetation development in terms of water and nutrients uptake and overall plant growth po. Yun lang.
Okay, thank you, Sir Rafael. So, ayun, I think I also mentioned that na
Yes, sir.
reliant talaga doon sa pagtubo, yung sa nutrient, yung absorption of nutrients, yung ating mga halaman. So, if the temperature changes, it alters, it modifies yung characteristics ng soil at mas mataas ang evaporation rate, bababa yung water content, yung moisture content.
Okay.
So it will affect now the yield of the plants kasi yung nutrients coming from the soil. Thank you, Sir Rafael. So lastly, Sir John Eric.
Yes, hello po, good morning. So, susukan ko lang siguro yung sinabi ni Kuya Raf. Yes, totoo po yung sa it is also recorded in the case of in China on rice production. Yun po kasi yung aking i-report sana. So napaka talaga nung temperature, no, yung effect niya. So the problem is the longer habang tumatagal yung ating rice production or any food production for that matter is kailangan mag-increase, while tumataas din naman kasabay noon yung yung sa ating temperature. So there's a problem na dahil nga mataas yung temperature, it decreases the yield. So nakita rin po doon sa study, sir, na ang tawag dito, the technologies that are being developed are mitigating po yung decrease na yon. So pero most likely we will mas mag-lean on tayo through GMO on biotechnology to survive, no. So that's one of the key points po siguro na kailangan pagtuunan natin ng pansin. I know alam po natin na in the Philippines medyo controversial siya, especially in Region 7, if I'm not mistaken po, na talagang binabawal talaga nila yung pagpasok ng any GMO products. So I think hopefully the Senate will look into this soon enough, just to address the growing problem on food sufficiency and security po. Then personal experience naman, we have this project in Karanglan wherein yung shiitake mushroom is only growing on their area dahil po dun sa lamig, no. There are species po of this mushroom. There are species of mushroom that are needing yung ating malamig na temperature, no. So ayun, it just justifies that the temperature is very very much important po in agriculture. So it's yun. Tapos napapunta po kami sa Dolores, Quezon. There was this building doon. Share ko na lang din po, sorry. There was this building doon. I don't know if it's funded po by TA Bar. It's a mushroom house. Kaso hindi, it needs po yung siguro yung nagkaroon po ng issue po na they are trying to grow this called temperate mushrooms, pero dun sa area is napakainit. So what we recommended was use temperate mushrooms na lang kasi napakalaki ng investment ng agency na nagpondo ng project. Ayun, sana talagang malok interest din po yan.
Yeah, thank you, Sir John Eric. So I think we'll hear more of doon sa temperature relations kasi Sir John Eric will present yung isang article in China. Tama, Sir John Eric?
Yes po, yes po.
Okay. So thank you. I've heard all of your ideas, insights on how important it is yung mapag-aralan yung temperature pagdating sa growth or para ma-improve as well yung ating crop production for food sufficiency and food security. Okay? So this time, let's proceed with your oral reports. So since we'll start with nutrient relations, water relations, and temperature relations. So we have Ma'am Tess, Ma'am Teresita, Ma'am Bell, Sir Joel, and Sir John Eric. So tulad yung nabanggit ko last time, we'll have a petcha-kucha format pagdating doon sa presentation. So you have 20 by 20 seconds per slide to present. So I will be presenting. I'll be the one na mag-share ng screen, and within that period you are given given time to share kung ano yung tungkol doon sa project or article na sinearch niyo related to our topic. Okay na po ba tayo? Ma'am Tess, you'll go first.
Sir, opo sir. Pero sir, wag ba naming lait sir? Ang hirap po kasi.
Hindi we'll just be sharing. So parang ganun lang yung gagawin natin dito. Okay na?
Sige sir, push na.
Push na natin. Okay, so si Ma'am Teresita yung magiging buena mano dito. So itong cobalt, tama ba, Ma'am?
Yes sir.
Okay. Ma'am Tess, once I shared your presentation, you can immediately start. Okay, so the slides will automatically move every after 20 seconds. Ma'am Tess, ready ka na?
Sir, okay po.
Okay.
So good morning, happy lunch mga classmates, sir. So bilisan lang po natin that 20 seconds lang po. So my case study is all about nutrient relations, and ang napili ko pong topic ay all about cobalt, which is now classified under being a beneficial element. So hindi po siya kabilang sa micro-essential at sa macro-essential. Ngayon po, i-persuade ko po kayo na si cobalt ay isang essential micronutrient for plant growth. Ayan po. So ito po ay isang article na part ng research topic nila, Xu Hu, Xiangwei, Jiling, Jianjun Chen, mula sa College of Horticulture and Landscape sa China po ito, Guangzhou, China. So, ang title po ay Cobalt, an Essential Micronutrient for Plant Growth. Sa ano pong article na ito, sabi dito, cobalt has been considered as an essential element for prokaryotes, human beings, and other mammals. Umiikot po ito doon sa kanyang importance bilang an essential po sa growth, lalo na sa anong tawag dito, essential po siya sa growth dahil related po siya sa nitrogen fixation. And sabi po dito, ito po yung mga review of related literature na nagsasabi nga na yung stand po na si cobalt ay essential. Ayan, so significant progress has been made in plant mineral nutrition, sabi po sa isang related studies din. And pinakamahalaga po dito na function ni cobalt is siya po ay part ni cobalamin, which is associated po siya sa fixing the atmosphere nitrogen into ammonia. And ito po ay noong 1960 pa. So up until now po, hindi pa rin nila ma-decide kung si cobalt po ba ay isang micro-essential nutrient or beneficial lamang. Ayan po. So yung close relationship po ay na-establish among co-supply cobalamin content in the, specifically po to rhizobium. Ayan po. So ito po makikita po natin sa schematic illustration dito. Nitrogen fixation in bacteria. And nagpe-play po si cobalamin dito bilang ito po siya sa cobalamin plays important role in nitrogen fixation. Ito po ay isang enzyme. Ito ay isang cofactor at hindi lang po sa hayop, pati din po sa mga bacteria and plants. So, ito po sabi dito cobalt protein in plants. Sabi ay ancestor daw po ng chloroplast is cyanobacteria. So, sa history, parang ini-emphasize na through evolution kasama si cobalamin rather, sa pagkakaroon ng ability ng plants na mag-fix ng nitrogen into air, from the air para magamit as nutrients. And sabi po dito, si cobalt ay may kakayahan din na mag-substitute para sa other metals. Ayan po, sabi dito sa article na ito, ano ba yun? Zinc, substitution of zinc, ano pa ba? Iron, ayan po. And ini-emphasize po dito ay si cobalt is essential for lower plants. Pag sinabi pong lower plants, ito po ay si bryophytes and algae. At hindi ko po kabisado masyado kung paano po may lower plants po pala at higher plants. Pero sabi po dito, pag sinabing higher plants naman, ay yung mas parang complex na po na mga halaman or plants. Ayan po. So, sana po i-upload ni Sir Gerald to para mas mabasa nyo po dahil hindi ko po mabasa ng within 20 seconds. Moreover po, explanations for the improved growth of non-leguminous plants Kasi kanina po sinabi ko na essential siya lalo na sa nitrogen fixation. So, hindi lang po siya limited sa leguminous plants ang importance po ni cobalt, pati din po sa non-leguminous plants kasi in-enhance po nito ang tolerance sa abiotic stress, activation of enzymes, and etc. po. At isa po sa kaya ina-argue nila na essential si cobalt dahil pag may deficiency po ito sa halaman ay may nangyayari din pong hindi maganda. It causes growth retardation in rubber trees specifically po at saka sa tomato plants pag may kakulangan daw po sa cobalt. Moreover po, may tinatawag din tayong toxicity sa plants. So pag mataas po ang concentration ng cobalt, nagkakaroon po ng phytotoxicity na kapares po sa copper, nickel, and zinc. And then po, so ito pong mga karakteristik na to, toxicity, yung toxicity, ito pong mga characteristics na to, strong argument po ito para ma-consider siya bilang essential element. Na-discuss po sa atin ni Sir Gerald last time yung kung paano mo ba masasabing essential lang isang nutrient. Ayan po, so for the conclusions and future perspectives, sabi po dito, parang more study pa lang dapat gawin sa cobalt since yun nga po, constituent siya ng cobalamin which is required for symbiotic endophytic associated bacteria and nitrogen fixation. And yung current view daw po natin ay dapat pa nating dagdagan. Further research is warranted to identify the more specific roles of cobalt in diazotropes with an emphasis in the bacteria, certain co-containing enzymes and proteins that are implicated in metabolisms of both lower and higher plants, and to determine the interactions of cobalt and other nutrients pa po. Ayun po, so ang tanong ko po ngayon sa inyo, classmates, sir, na-convince ko po ba kayo na si cobalt is cobalt can be considered as a micro-essential nutrient? Yan po. Or essential po ba siyang nutrient?
Okay, thank you.
Ang
Po natin,
hirap, sir. Parang
Labakan po
ang
natin si
hirap,
Ma'am
sir.
Tess. Yeah, actually, yan yung first reaction lagi ng mga students ko, ma'am. To present in 20 seconds per slide. Challenging ba, Ma'am Tess? Ikaw yung ba naman sa group eh.
So, sir, daig ko pa sa Glock 9 kanina, sir.
Okay, but you did very, very well, Ma'am Tess. Basically, you laymanized the information, you laymanized the topic. So, the question ni Ma'am Tess, iba to natin sa klase. So, are you convinced that cobalt is an essential micronutrient? So, kung sino po yung gustong sumagot, na-convince po ba si Ma'am Tess? Na-convince po ba kayo ni Ma'am Tess? Ay, Ma'am
Kinabahan
Tess.
na kami lahat, sir. Hindi na sila magtatanong kasi pag tinanong nila ako, sir, tatanungin ko din sila.
Ayan, so cobalt, basically, yeah, it's present in some of the organisms, some of the plant species. And it's actually a good point to talk about, to elaborate, whether I'm now interested to read the whole article. How did they come up with such idea? Kasi di ba, when we had our discussion on nutrient relations, there are parang may criteria for it to be considered as a essential and non-essential, macro and micro essentials. Okay? So thank you, Ma'am Tess. Wala po ba kayong tanong kay Ma'am Tess regarding dun sa article? Natakot ata, Ma'am Tess.
Yes, sir. I-unfriend ko si Sir John Eric, sir, pag nagtanong siya sa akin.
Hey, anyway, Ma'am, you did very, very well. Definitely, I will upload the slides para mabasa in detail yung inyong presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Halabat daw si Sir John Eric, Ma'am. Okay, so thank you, Ma'am Tess. So it's a very job well done on, by the way, that is our topic related doon sa ating nutrient relations na topic. Okay, thank you. Let's proceed with the next one. So si Ma'am Bell. So this time on tomatoes naman tayo. Ma'am Bell, ready na po kayo?
Yes po, Doc.
Okay. Very challenging lang. Eh, Ma'am Tess, by the way, mamaya I'll give you time. Baka meron kang nabanggit na may gusto ka pang banggitin na hindi nabanggit dahil mabilis yung time. So after ni Ma'am Bell. Okay, so let's start. So once po nag-share screen siya, ma'am, nag-full screen na siya dun sa slide, you can start.
Hello po, everyone. So I'm going to present po the paper of Mr. Saha and his co-authors, titled sorry po, maraming animation. Titled The Growth and Yield of Tomato as Affected by Organic and Inorganic Fertilizer. So this study came from the agrotechnology discipline, Khulna University, Khulna, Bangladesh, and was published by Journal of Bangladesh Agricultural University po in 2019. So tomato po is one of the most consumed vegetables and is also the second most important horticultural crop worldwide. And sinasabi din po that third most important vegetable crop in the world and ranked first as the processing crop po ayon sa FAO. And in Bangladesh po, the area under tomato cultivation is 27,518 hectares with a total production of 389,000 metric tons, having an average yield of 14 tons. So mas doble po yung kanilang naaani as compared po dito sa Pilipinas na meron lang po tayong 70 tons, no, as sa PSA, ayon po yan sa PSA. So with varietal differences po, with balanced fertilization is vital po, no, to increase po yung yield as well as the quality po ng ating tomato, and it is essential to find out the best yung productive variety with optimum fertilizer na kailangan po ng ating mga tomato. And this study was conducted to evaluate the performance of 2 tomato varieties with different combination po ng organic and inorganic fertilizer po. Yun pa. So, for the for study side, this study was conducted at Dr. Fernando Gaines Field Laboratory of Agrotechnology Discipline of Khulna University, Khulna, Bangladesh from October 2014 to March 2015. And nag-conduct po sila ng soil collection, no, for the soil analysis and for the experimental design and treatment. So they use the experimental design of randomized complete block design with 3 replications. So they have 8x2 factors. We have the manure or fertilizer and yung 2 varieties ng tomato. So they use the 5 grams of tomato seeds planted in a seed bed. So they use the transplanting method with a planting distance of 60x40 po. And yung mga cultural practices such as the weeding, yung trellising, and irrigation ay ginawa po nila. And for the fertilizer application, they use the compost po ng mga organic manure and yung different fertilizer, for example, the NPK. So eto po yung mga data na kinolect po nila and yung statistical analysis po na ginamit dun sa study. And meron nga po silang plant height, flower per cluster, number of fruits. So for the results and discussion, we have the variety and plant height. And as you can see in the figure po, that Barry Tomato 15 exhibited the highest plant height as compared to dun sa Barry Tomato 14, no? So, makikita po dyan that at different growth stage po ng ating tomato. Yeah. So for the table 2, we have the effect of fertilizer treatment on plant height. And as you can see that treatment 8 obtained the highest or the tallest plants comparable to treatment 7 and treatment 1 with 100% recommended fertilizer dose. So for the table 3, we have the combined effect of fertilizer and variety. So ito po yung interaction effect na ginagawa po nung mga treatment. So, Barry Tomato 15 obtained the highest plant height than the Barry Tomato 14. And using this treatment 8, obtained the highest tallest plant na ginamit po yung Barry 15 tomato. And then for the table 4, Barry Tomato 15 exhibited the highest number of flower cluster per plant, number of flower per cluster, number of fruit cluster per plant, and number of cluster. So mas mataas po yung naging ani, no? Doon sa table na yon, mas mataas yung naging ani ng Barry Tomato 14 than the Barry Tomato 15. So yun po yung table na yon. So for the table 5, we have the effect of fertilizer and yield components. So makikita natin the treatment 8 get the highest yield and yield contributing of different factors, no, than the Barry Tomato 14. So for table 6, we have the effect of fertilizer and variety. So makikita pa rin po natin talagang mataas yung treatment 8 with 60% organic manure plus the 40% RFD. So for the cost and return analysis, so nagtandak din po sila nito that the treatment 8 using the Barry Tomato 14 get the highest BCR of 5.11 with and highest net return of 841,345 for the economic analysis, no? So for the conclusion, combination of organic and inorganic fertilizer resulted to a better yield of tomato. And application ng 60% organic manure and 40% ng inorganic, no, can provide the best results for increasing yield ng ating tomato. So for the recommendation, the effect of this manure can compensate up to 60% reduction of recommended fertilizer. So hence both organic and inorganic fertilizer should be used by the farmers for profitable tomato production. So yun lamang po at maraming salamat. So for the question po,
Thank you, Ma'am Bel.
Pasensya na po ang bilis po.
Inom ka muna, Ma'am Bel. Para nakakagising ng dugo, di ba, Ma'am?
Thank you po, thank you po.
Thank you. Palakpakan po natin si Ma'am Bel for parang kaya mo pala mag-rap eh.
Ang bilis ko pong magsalita, pasensya na po, medyo naano po ako dun sa PowerPoint. Ang bilis din po ng transition.
So parang 20 seconds, it's
Yes.
very very fast, no? Pero ginagawa nila to sa ginagawa po nila ito sa mga conferences in Japan. Sa Pecha Kucha, this is actually a version of their Squid Talk.
Yes.
So, yung mga short presentation. So, ginagawa nila ganito para makasave sila ng time. Because, Japan, yung mga Japanese, they are very keen pagdating sa time nila. So,
Yes.
dapat on time talaga yung mga presentations. So,
Good training din po sa amin, sir.
yeah. Ito ay pinapagawa ko talaga sa mga students ko, sa mga undergraduate students, so that they will be trained when they present. They will know what are the important things na kailangan nilang ilagay, ano yung kailangan nilang ipasok, ano yung kailangan nilang sabihin. So magandang training din po ito actually sa grad school. I learned this from my professor in UPLB na pinagawa sa amin itong ganitong klaseng Squid Talk. So when I came back, I thought na ituro ko din to kasi mas ganda siyang experience.
Yes po, Doc.
Nakakakaba siya.
Tutulad pa ako sa inyo.
pwede itong i-share, ma'am, sa inyong mga colleagues din.
Yes
Anyway,
po.
thank you for a
Thank
very
you po.
good presentation. So, para pinaghandaan niya ni Ma'am Tessa at saka ni Ma'am Tess itong itong presentation. So, it's a very good topic as well. Particularly on tomatoes and Bangladesh. Somehow we have most likely we share the same temperature. So, this might be also be applicable in the country.
Yes.
So, do you have any questions po kay Ma'am Bell? Parang ayaw magtanong kasi ayaw baka magkaroon ng gantihan eh. Okay, anyway, you can have your drink muna, Ma'am Bell. Feeling ko na ubusan ka ng hininga kanina dun sa presentation. But overall, it's a very job well done sa inyong presentation. Thank you po. Thank you.
Thank you po. Thank you po.
Okay, so let's proceed with the next topic. Para tayo may short conference dito. Sir Joel.
Sir, wait lang. Huwag mo nang i-share. Kung okay lang sa iyo, a few seconds lang disclaimer, no? Kasi para ma-level lang expectation. Hindi ko na po ulitin sa report ko kung ano yung concept na shinare na ni Sir Gerald. I'll be focusing more on the develop application. So, yun lang po. Parang technology na siya. Intervention. Okay, go sir. Kanina pa ako kinakabahan eh.
Okay, so pagka-share, sir, you can immediately start. Okay, so pag nagbuo na, sir, na nag-screen siya.
Automatic naman, sir, no?
Yeah,
Wala na akong...
automatic po siya.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, good morning to everyone. So I'll be sharing an application or technology that will illustrate water relations. So it was developed by Phil Rice and Erie. And I got this from their completed report document. No? So I have to give credit to them. Hindi ko na isa-isa, ang dami nila eh. Researcher, scientist ng Phil Rice and Erie. Bumbagal ah. Naunahan ko yung slide. Automon Application Technology. Yun po yung pangalan ng technology. Automon. So it's called the Automon PH. I think this has been, I don't know if this is already patented, but it addresses an enhancement to the AWD. No? I think this was mentioned by one of our classmates last time. No? Yung AWD, it's a support tool, a decision support tool for sustainable water management. So ito po yung mga issues, no? Ineffective water management, disorganized water management, lack of technology, scalable technology. We all know that especially for rice, kailangan talaga nila ma-organize, no? They're not getting directly the water, but it goes through irrigator associations. So there's a big problem how to address water availability. So it uses IoT, Internet of Things, no? And through that IoT, we can better manage water. We can monitor the water level. We can do whatever management practice that we can entail. It involves multi-stakeholder interfacing and other, efficient. Ito yung framework. A framework of the Automon PH. There is a system where the system connects the sources of irrigation to the farmers, to the decision makers, and the policy makers. Nagsisend siya ng signal eh. Pagka mababa na yung water level, magsisignal na siya dun sa supplier na kailangan mag-supply ka na. Okay? So it's a proven method that improves water productivity and management because it's a computer guided system. Medyo high-tech masyado. Hindi ko rin maipaliwanag ng masyado, but I just want to bring to the appreciation of everyone. Ito, dashboard siya. Ito yung nakikita. No? So it gives a signal on certain areas. Ito na yung level of water, no, in the soil. So pag medyo it comes to a dangerous level, meron na siyang yung sensor, magta-transmit na siya ng information dun sa server niya. Then magpapakawala na siya ng tubig. No? So again, I would like to give credit to the proponents. This comes from Erie, Phil Rice with support from the DA. Actually, BAR funded this one. And yun nga, sabi ko nga, it's a decision support tool to improve water management. So hindi na siya mano-manong thinking ng farmers, basta mag-flood ako dyan, maglagay ako dyan, minsan wala akong makuhang tubig. Okay, so it's proven that this technique saves water by up to 30%. You know, we are a country of irony kasi ang daming tubig, bumabaha, pag tagtuyot naman, tuyong-tuyo. So what's the problem with the country? No? We're not effectively managing water. So yun po. Okay, this was already, the AWD is not new. Decades ago, this has been developed. But hindi pa rin talaga natin siya effectively na-implement. No? Sabi nga dito, slow and rather gradual. No? So maybe it really needs this kind of technology for us to better, bring this scale this one. So challenges of AWD, water governance, lack of decision platform, kulang tayo sa knowledge, labor intensive. We want the technology to work for us. Yun naman ang gusto natin dyan, di ba? We want the system, we want machines, we want robotics to assist the farm. Later, I will throw a question related to that. So ito yung ginawa nilang PESEL, yung SWOT. So yung mga na-involved na agency, of course, they have existing expertise. We have ERI, a long-standing partner. Ang tagal na ng ERI dito, pero nag-import pa rin tayo ng bigas. No? Of course, PhilRice is a very good capacity on machinery and equipment development. Weakness, yung dito ko ibabato yung tanong mamaya, yung scaling up and scaling out. Kulang tayo dyan. Limited team members, and of course, the farmers, there is a gap, knowledge gap, of course, to the farmer. Again, I will throw the question related to this one. Opportunities, of course, relatively low cost, baka sakaling may adapt siya. Okay, mechanization, of course, this is one way to modernize agriculture, and this is where we are attracting young people, no? Yung mechanization, digital farming, precision. We want to take advantage of policies to welcome, this adoption of this one. Threat. Siyempre, ang farmers, to cease to believe yan. Tapos, siyempre, ang maraming farmers, resource poor. Okay? This may be pricey. Imported pa yung parts niya, no? Again, security and safety of the device, especially in the field, in the hands of the farmers, kasama yan. So, makakaano na yan. So, ito po yung reference, di ko na isa-isahin. And I would like to throw the question, how do we really scale up? Hindi na po technical yung question, no? If you have an idea, how do you really ensure to scale up this technology so that farmers would really adopt? Kasi at the end of the day, thank you very much. Yun po yung gusto-gusto nating masagot na tanong. Okay, thank you. I would like to respect the time limit. Thank you po. Sir, ituloy ko na lang yung tanong. Yung po yung,
Yeah. Yes,
yung po yung
Sir
tanong
Joel,
po,
pakituloy na po.
kagaya nung naitanong ko last time, high-tech yung technology. That's why this is the one that I really want to share. May opportunity ganito, pero paano ba natin talaga siya ma-ensure na ma-adapt siya ng farmers, kagaya ng ibang mga technology. May hugot po ko dyan kasi siyempre galing kami sa mga budget hearing. Alam nyo naman po yung ating Madam, the very honorable, the very good Madam Senator. Research kayo ng research, baka naman yung nire-research yun, hindi naman gusto ng farmers. So yun lang po, no? Hindi technical yung question, but it's more of a policy-related question. Thank you very much po, sir and classmates.
Yeah, thank you, Sir Joel. Actually, I really relate doon sa question mo, sir. Kasi we have a lot of technology. However, hindi talaga siya sometimes na-download. So, kaya di na nababanggit siguro ni Senator yon. Yung research kayo ng research, tapos yan, hindi naman yan kailangan ng farmers. Probably it is really a challenge for us. Kasi how are we going to convert this technical aspect na maintindihan siya ng mga farmers? So another way around to address it also is to improve literacy. So sa ibang aspect ito, but I think that's another way. But probably future yon. I think future siguro yung sa literacy rate ng mga farmers. But at present, medyo hindi naman sa mababa, but most of our farmers, they really did not go to higher education. Yung iba nga hanggang elementary talaga, especially kung pag-uusapan yung lola at lola natin, yung mga tito, tita, tatay na din natin, sometimes they're not really also proceed with that. Yun yung challenge talaga sa atin ngayon, kung paano natin i-laymanize lahat. But in reality, this is very helpful for them. Siguro I think some ang naisip ko, kasi this is very much related also, sir, sa Saray, because they also have this kind of system, pero iba lang, kumbaga, ibang approach yung ginagawa nila, and they're really looking into the policy aspect. Kasi if ito, sinasabi ko rin to sa aking mga estudyante, especially when we are dealing with environmental problems and environmental solutions to environmental problems. Ang laging sinasabi sa kanila, if we don't have a specific policy on that, mahirapan tayong implement siya on the ground. So, isa to sa gustong gawin ng Saray, and what they did for Saray, I'm speaking for Saray, what they did is they elevated it doon sa Picard, and it is now one of the research agenda doon sa harmonized natural resources, aquatic resource development, research agenda nila for 2022 to 2027. So it's now one specific, yung smart approaches. Kasi actually sir, yung itong Automont, it is one of the smart approaches natin pagdating sa agriculture. So, yun yung para sa akin, sir. If I will answer your question, kasi I'm very passionate also about this, kung paano marirelay yung ating mga efforts, not just only yung technology, but also the ideas dun sa mga farmers in a way that they will understand it at magagawa nila on the ground. Second is, of course, yung pera. Capital talaga. We have the technology, but this technology is not affordable to them. Then third, yun nga, yung pag-address siguro natin doon sa literacy. I think addressing the literacy will help yung ating mga researchers and scientists to relay this information, kung mai-improve natin yung literacy rate pagdating sa ating mga farmers. So that is on my point of view, because I would like to answer that question. So yung mga kasama, yes, Sir
If I
Joel.
may add po, in fact, I do appreciate also Project Saray, no? Kasi I have encountered Project Saray, I think a few years back. In fact, may isang UP professor nga noon na nag-introduce nito sa amin. Maybe you're familiar with Dr. Art Salazar?
Yes, sir.
Isa yung isang nag-bring up to. I think he's one of the advocates of this project also. In fact, I was also attending the DOST Picard Governing Council meeting when this project was presented, in fact, to Yusek Guevara. No, kasi parang nandoon sila ni former Secretary de la Peña noon. And I think they were proposing for a renewal para ma-continue yung Saray. In fact, they are already offering it to the DA. Kasi nga, ang application nito, dapat DA na talaga mag-implement. Ngayon, I do not know, I'm just sharing this so that siguro para mas ma-appreciate natin yung kung ito later. Kasi sa RICE po, in fact, baka alam din ito malamang ni Sir Eric, meron kasing na-develop ang PhilRICE yung PRISM, Philippine Rice Information Systems Management, if I'm not mistaken. It's a supply chain, value chain, decision support tool for rice. In fact, ang Saray is parang working along that line as well, but I think it covers the other commodities. So during that time, the DOST was already floating it to the DA. Sinasabi nila, kailangan ipopondohan ng DOST ito if the DA will take this. Kasi hindi pwedeng pondohan ng DOST ito kung hindi kukunin ng DA. Kasi number one, it's the DA who should be implementing this one. Kaya lang sir, hindi ko na po alam, baka alam nyo na po yung status. Hindi ko na alam that was a few years back. And nakakapanghinayang naman kung hindi talaga ito ma-absorb or ma-fully ma-implement dito sa atin, lalo na sa DA na side. So it's a very good initiative, no, yung Project Saray. In fact, aside from the fact that the name itself is biblical, no, Project Saray. So yun po, I think I have been, I'm very appreciating of you have repeatedly mentioned the Saray kasi ngayon, like with the advent of climate change and everything, we need all these decision support tools to aid us in our governance ng ating sector. So yun lang, sir. I just added something po. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Sir Joel. I think they did not approve the phase 3 of Saray. Yun yung alam ko, sir. But they're working now, I think they are working now on the integrated crop and monitoring forecasting system that will fuse yung climate variables doon sa ating crop production. They have actually 9. Maganda actually, sir, yung project sa Rai. When I'm not really familiar with it nung start, I just get into it in 2016 kasi si Dr. Espaldon, who happens also to be my advisor, dissertation advisor. Siya yung program leader ng buong Saray project. So doon ako na-involved. Not directly doon sa dissertation, but I've been attending several yung parang seminars, presentations ng Saray. It's actually a really good project and very general naman siya. Wherein yung meaning naman ng Saray, it's actually smart approaches to reinvigorate agriculture as an industry. So and nung binabasa ko yung harmonized research agenda ng PICARD, nagulat ako na one of the agenda now is yun nga mismong Saray, the term itself. So sabi ko, baka ito na siguro yung parang in exchange of hindi na i-approve yung project, hindi na approve yung phase 3, they have it as an agenda para lahat ng mga efforts ba ng mga ibang, kasi they have I think 27 SUCs involved throughout the Philippines. Yung scale niya malaki. So sayang kasi din yung effort. So parang ang dating na lang, if I'm not mistaken, parang ganito na kasi, sir, yung pinapagawa nila ng PICARD. Instead na isang university yung hahawak ng program, it will now be decentralized doon sa mga different SUCs. Yun yung pagkakaalam ko na effort dito. And tama kayo, sir, if nabanggit din ito ni Dr. Espaldon when I had a talk with her, that it should be the DA that implements now the project kasi they have already developed the system. So kailangan na siyang makascade. I think I agree with that. Ito rin yung dahilan na sana, ito rin, sir, yung parang we have to harmonize all our smart approaches, yung mga efforts ba, para make it a one umbrella. Para ang dating is, hindi ako gagawa ng, halimbawa, meron ako research about rice, similar effort, parang similar idea with other researchers. Parang hindi na magdodoble ba? Sayang kasi din yung investment natin, especially for the funding agencies that provide funds for this to be accomplished. It has to be harmonized. Kumbaga, hindi na mag-duplicate. Yun din yung reason when I pitched this to the Region 3, the regional office, they have already the technology, so why we need to create one? Parang bakit namin kailangan mag-create another? Ang binabanggit namin is we just need to fit yung technology doon sa area. So ano yung parang localize ba? We localize the technology that's para mag-fit siya at maging suitable siya doon sa area kung saan siya i-implement. So I'm also passionate about this kasi farmers yung pinag-uusapan. At in a way, half-hearted din ako dun sa comment ni Senator that research ka ng research. But of course, researchers, they do this kasi they want to help the farmers. It is just a challenge for us on how to relay this to the farmers. Yun talaga yung mahirap. I think DevCom will come in here. Parang ito na yung role ng mga development communication graduates natin for community development. Kasi sila na yung supposedly will do the simplification or laymanizing the context, yung pinaka-technical nito. Sorry, ang dami ko rin sinabi because I'm really passionate about this. Thank you, Sir Joel. So, meron bang ibang ideas yung ating mga kasamahan dito? Yung sa question ni Sir Joel kanina. Okay, wala na siguro. Ayun, so let's have the last one, Sir John Eric. Ready?
Sana, sir.
Okay. Ano lang naman to? Mabilis lang. Okay, once na nag-share ng screen, sir, lumaki na yung screen, nag-fit in na yung slide, you may immediately start. Okay? Thank you.
Yun, good afternoon po. Good afternoon po sa ating lahat. So, I will be presenting temperature relations. Ito pong study na to ay nakita ko lang din sa isang journal. No? Um, hopefully, I do it justice po by my presentation. So, the title of the study is The Negative Impact of Increasing Temperature on Rice Yields in Southern China. So, the authors are Yan Ling Song, Chunyi Wang, Hans Linderholm, Yan Fu, and et al. So this study was I think it was done 2020 po, if I'm not mistaken. So in the abstract, so China is the main producer of consumers of rice in the world, no? Dahil sila po yung mas napakalaking population. So reduced yield caused by climate factors not only affect the food security of China but also in the whole world, no? Thus, it is vital to assess the potential impact as an indicator for damaging high temperature. So tumataas na rin po kasi talaga yung ating climate, no? So this in relation po sa climate change. So the damages was occurred during the vegetative state. So introduction, rice is one of the most important staple food crops in the world. So it is also in China, being the largest rice producer and consumer. So rice growth and productivity are influenced by climate factors such as radiation, temperature, and availability of water. So temperature plays a very major role in determining the phenological development and growth rates of rice. In the past few decades, crop damages caused by heat stress had occurred more frequently. So mas dumadalas na, and the longer exposure to high temperatures caused sterility to rice plants. So the study area was conducted in the 4 provinces of South China, namely Zhejiang, Jiangxi, Hunan, Fujian, Guangdong, and Guangxi provinces. So the table below shows the maximum temperature, minimum temperature, and the precipitation in millimeter po dun sa southern China. So this is their method on how they gauge po, no? So they used yung GDD, or the Growing Degree Day Index. This is how they estimate the beneficial effects of temperature on rice development during the growing season. GDD is a typically used to represent the accumulated heat. Ito po yung KDD naman na tumataas, no? Kita naman po natin sa graph na in the year 1961 to 1970s, nandyan lang siya, no, sa 4 degrees Celsius a day. Then going now here, umaabot na po siya ng 8 degrees Celsius to 9 degrees Celsius. So almost double na po yung temperature. So one also of the na tinitingnan nila ay yung yield changes. So rice yield in China increased by 80% over the last 40 years. Mainly induced po ito ng mga technological advances in the rice variety fertilization application. However, these technologies usually only for short time. For example, new varieties po. So ito po yung table, average daily maximum po ng mga temperature. So makita po natin dito, habang mas napupunta tayo sa present, mas tumataas din talaga yung temperature, no? Even the minimum temperature na dating 20, mapalo na po ng 22 degrees Celsius, no? So increase recorded from the daily maximum, and temperatures exceeded the critical level for rice. Makita po natin sa table on the right na during this 2009-2018, dumarami na po sa ating scatter plot yung mga areas na affected. And this shows yung rice yields, how rice yield during the first cropping was heavily influenced dahil doon po yung init ng panahon nila sa China. no? So on the left side po ng mga graph ay dyan po yung differences po. And then the correlation between the early variations po of KDD. The table shows a significant negative influence on high temperatures on early rise in South China. The impact of high temperatures on late rise was lower with the correlation coefficient po. So yan yung data. So in summary, the results show that the average daily mean temperature of the rice growing season increased by 0.7 degrees Celsius from 2009 to 2018. Relative, the late rice, while the KDD for early rice increased 110% and the 88.6 for late rice. So mas affected po ang early rice nila. Because it has been estimated that the rice production needs to increase by 20% until 2030 to feed the growing population in China, it is vital to develop relevant adoption strategies for warmer climate. Our results suggest that late rice is presently sensitive to warning because it's the productive stage when there is a less risk of temperature po. Sorry po.
Thank you, Sir John Eric. So, ito, very related siya doon sa ating topic for today, dahil temperature relations. So, they have this term, KDD. And, ano siya, I mean, yung increase ng temperature, grabe between 1990s to 2000, no? I mean, there's
Yes po.
really a disconnect. Sobrang taas nung change in temperature. That really climate change.
Yes, almost double,
Has
almost double na po.
grabe yung ano niya. I'll just would like to share it kasi share ko lang siya ulit dito sa screen. This portion, itong part na to, I mean, grabe yung pagtaas. Nung
During the
temperature.
Industrial Revolution po at China yan.
1990s to 2000. So, this is very late. I mean, itong decade lang na to.
Yes. Yan yata yung start ng Industrial Revolution nila.
Yeah. Pero grabe. Grabe yung taas nung ano, nung temperature. So, then, I'm checking their scatter itong kanilang
Scatter plot.
scatter plot. So basically yung R squared nila it's 0.35. So probably the relationship is at 35%. And ito is nasa 5%. So mas malaki yung impluwensya ng
During the early
during
season
the
po.
early
Early
season
season.
nila. Yeah, very interesting. Ayun, so do you have any question for the class or
Sorry, hindi po. Nawala na yung question. Sorry po.
okay, so do you have any questions? Yung pong ating mga kasamahan, do you have any questions for Sir John Eric's topic? I think wala na or gutom na.
Gutom na, Doc.
Yeah, it's already almost 1 p.m. Anyway, I think very straightforward yung topic ni Sir John Eric that high temperature has really an effect doon sa crop yield in that particular area doon sa China, and evident din naman yan in other places around the world. So thank you for your presentation, Sir Joel, Ma'am Tess, Ma'am Bell, and Sir John Eric. So for the next 2 weeks, we'll be hearing it from Sir Rafael and Ma'am Tricia. Okay? So I think we'll conclude our class for today. It's already almost 1 o'clock. It's already 12:54. So I think this is our longest. Parang ngayon lang tayo umabot ng ganito kahaba na oras. But yeah, we started at 11 p.m. din naman. 11 a.m. Anyway, let's have our documentation for today. May I request everyone to turn on their cameras. Ayun. Si Ma'am Tess ata kumain na eh. Anyway, so in count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Isa pa po. Isa pa. In count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Ayun. So thank you very much for your participation in our class. So I'll upload our recordings. I will also upload the slides of our oral reporters today so that you can view them later. So see you all next week. Good day, everyone. Have a lunch. Have a
Thank you.
have
Thank you po.
sumptuous
Good day
lunch.
po.
Yeah. So good day po, everyone. Good day.